Hi, everybody. For those of us who just joined, we're just letting people in. It's Anna and I today um, figuring this out. And my son's helping out here as well. So bear with us as we figure out the technology. So we are at 24. So just in the interest of time, why don't we get started? Anna, if you could kindly let people in as we join. So hello, everybody. Welcome to Vancouver College Parent Talk. My name is Michelle Petrusevich. I am me and Anna Hostafi are the co-chairs for the Parent Talk this year. Just to kind of get some of the admin stuff out of the way. So today I'm very pleased to have Christy Donnelly as our keynote speaker. Christy is part of the community as well, and she was actually came in highly recommended by our president, Michelle Rapp. So her and I talked a lot before this presentation, and she will talk about how does the diet affect your child's behavior. I think a very important topic. She has a lot of information to cover. So what I would like to start with, just a couple of admin things, is some of you kindly admitted a bunch of questions before. So she will cover those questions in her presentation. And I don't think we'll have time to get into the rest. We do want to keep to the allotted time, 7 to 8, in respect of everybody's time. So we will end at 8. However, Christy will provide her information and she will share. You guys can contact her afterwards. So the chat is disabled. So just take notes. We're also recording this presentation. It will be available afterwards. So you could then access it. So before we get going, Christy, anything else? Did I miss anything?
Nope, I think that's
Okay,
everything.
perfect. I'll get Sasha Janusov to do the prayer, and the land acknowledgement. We are, let's get, as all things are in Vancouver College, let's start with a prayer. Go ahead, Sasha.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God, we thank you for the gift of our lives and for this day. We offer you our hearts and minds, asking for your guidance as we seek to live according to your will. Fill us with your peace, wisdom, and love as we encounter the challenges and blessings of this day. Please grant us the strength to serve one another with kindness, the courage to stand for what is right, and the humility to learn and grow. May our actions reflect your goodness, and may we be always mindful of your presence in our lives. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sasha. And if I can get you to do the land acknowledgements.
We would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Musqueam Nation and extend our appreciation for the opportunity to live, learn, and play on this beautiful territory. Acknowledging this territory shows recognition of and respect for the Indigenous people who live and have lived on this land. Recognition and respect are essential elements of establishing healthy reciprocal relationships. These relationships are a key to reconciliation, a process to which Vancouver College is committed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I am going to mute myself and turn off the video so we can give all the bandwidth to Christy. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in tonight. My name is Christy Donnelly, and my two boys go to school here at Vancouver College. We have had a health journey with them since they were quite young. Both my boys were born with a heart condition, so health was on the forefront right from the start. And then through some of their earlier years, we discovered some food intolerances that they were facing. So I was kind of forced to learn a lot about nutrition along the way. And I learned what worked well to support them, and I also learned the things that did not work well for them. So this path kind of led me to go back to school and become a registered holistic nutritionist. I knew kind of what worked for my boys, but I wanted to learn more about nutrition in general, how it connects to different areas of health in general, and how I could help others. So tonight, the focus is going to be on learning and behavior and how diet can play a role in these areas. As any parent who has had a child struggle with behavior and learning problems knows, it not only affects the child, but the parent and possibly the entire family is struggling too. There's that saying that says, you're only as happy as your saddest child. And it just kind of says how when your kid's struggling and going through challenges, you as a parent really feels it as well. So those struggles that can be encountered can be at all ages, and the presented symptoms often morph from one into another as the child matures. Here's just an example, the toddler who has meltdowns and tantrums, and you think, okay, that was just the phase, then now becomes the school age child who experiences poor focus, hyperactivity, maybe learning challenges. And then that leads to the teen who struggles with anxiety, depression, poor executive function. These are just some examples of the challenges that kids are facing today. And so if we consider what a child is eating and how it affects brain health, the brain is the most complex organ in the body. And in order for it to thrive, it needs to be nourished with nutrient-rich foods. So the foods we choose as fuel can have a positive or a negative impact on the brain, which directly affects both physical and mental development. High quality, nutrient dense food will nourish the brain to support the mind, provide benefits that can improve brain function, whereas a diet lacking necessary nutrients will have the opposite effect, enhancing negative cognitive function and decreasing that brain function. So this may present in many ways. A few examples here could be difficulty with sleep, poor focus, irritability, withdrawal, lack of energy, impulsivity. The list can go on. And so many symptoms that today's kids are struggling with are very related to this suboptimal cognitive function, which can be in direct relationship to what they're putting in their bodies. So we're going to look at a few areas to consider that play a role in brain health. But the first area I want to talk about is the relationship between neurotransmitters, which you're going to hear me mention neurotransmitters quite a bit tonight, but the relationship between them and the microbiome. So the gut and the brain are very closely connected through what's called the gut-brain axis. And this is a communication system that links the gastrointestinal system to the central nervous system. And this relationship can influence mood, behavior, cognitive function, and even attention. So here on the slide, we have neurotransmitters. They play a big role in keeping the brain balanced and functioning because they carry very important messages around the body. And then we have the microbiome, which is made up of trillions of microorganisms living in the gastrointestinal tract. Most of those organisms are bacteria, but it can also be viruses, fungi, and other microbes. But what many people often don't realize is how intricately the two are related. They think, okay, neurotransmitters are in the brain and the microbiome is in the gut. One way that they're very interestingly connected is because most gut bacteria actually produce neurotransmitters. And it's these chemical messengers that are going to help keep the brain thriving. Two well-known neurotransmitters that many of you have probably heard of are serotonin and dopamine. And they're often referred to as the feel-good hormones because they're associated with what keep us feeling happy, focused, calm, positive, motivated. And what many are unaware of is that upwards of 90% of the body's serotonin is actually produced in the gut. And much of the body's dopamine is also produced there. So this means if the gut health is compromised, these important neurotransmitters are not even going to be produced at appropriate levels. So it's not even really a realistic expectation for the body to have these optimal levels of these critical mood stabilizers if the gut is out of balance. And a lack of neurotransmitters is going to contribute to a child's inability to properly regulate their emotions, stay focused, and thrive mentally. So Now we've established that having a healthy microbiome and a balanced gut is extremely important. So, what do we need to do in order for that to happen? The main thing is that we need to feed the good bacteria in the gut. And unfortunately, the foods that many children are often leaning towards and those that are heavily marketed towards them, which is, highly processed foods, sugar, unhealthy fats, these foods are going to negatively affect the gut's microbiome and create dysbiosis, which is an imbalance within the gut. And now, knowing how intricately the brain and the gut are related and how important it is for the production of neurotransmitters, we know that an imbalance in the gut is going to translate to an imbalance in the brain. And so, how do we feed that good bacteria and support the appropriate production of the neurotransmitters is the way to feed the good bacteria is with prebiotic fibers. So consuming high fiber foods such as berries, leafy greens, legumes, whole grains, this is going to help promote the growth of beneficial bacteria and limit the growth of the bad bacteria. So a diet rich in fruits and vegetables is going to help nourish that microbiome and then in turn nourish the brain. And when you replace that processed food that many are eating, the sugars and refined carbs, with these fiber-rich foods, you can start to see the intestinal function strengthen quite quickly. The gut can heal quite quickly when you put the work into it. And this will help improve behavior and optimize the capacity for a child to learn. Sometimes you're needing to add more good bacteria into the system. Incorporating fermented foods is also a great way to do that. If the microbiome needs a bigger boost, individuals may temporarily want to supplement with a good quality probiotic just to add that good bacteria into the system. Sometimes certain medications, such as if you had to go on a course of antibiotics, will disrupt the balance in the gut. And it's often necessary to supplement for a period of time just to help the body's microorganisms return to a healthy state. But once that balance has been established in the gut, maintaining a healthy diet with plenty of those prebiotic fibers should help keep everything on track and keep the balance within the gut. And so some of you may have heard the term to eat the rainbow. This refers to making sure that you're incorporating colorful foods into your child's everyday diet. Different colors will represent different vitamins and minerals, and those micronutrients are really important for our health. So the visualization of eating a rainbow can be kind of a fun way to encourage youngsters to try new brightly colored foods. And this array of foods is going to help create nutrient diversity, feeding that gut again in a healthy way. Whereas you think of foods that are processed and colorless, foods like that many kids have as staples in their diets, like French fries and chips, chicken strips, processed bread, and other store-bought baked goods. There's no color in these foods. There's no natural color, and that's often going to translate into a lower nutritional value. So just that visualization of the bright colored foods, you know that they're going to be rich in vitamins and minerals. The next area that is really important to talk about is protein. Protein is a macronutrient that is essential for the growth and repair of the body. It helps build the brain structure and communication system, so it's going to make it very important for cognitive function. Some ways that protein supports learning, again, back to those important neurotransmitters. Proteins are the building blocks for them, and it's going to support the production of things like serotonin and dopamine, which helps with focus and memory and problem solving. Protein also helps to stabilize blood sugars, which will provide a steady energy for the body and the brain. And that's going to support better concentration and better learning throughout the day. This stabilization of energy levels will also help to prevent the spikes and crashes in blood sugars that can be linked to behavioral issues like hyperactivity and fatigue. We are going to talk a little more about blood sugar in a bit, but protein just kind of helps with that stabilization. As I mentioned before, the protein supports the growth and repair of all cells in the body. So this is going to include the brain cells, which is crucial for learning and learning new skills. So it's really important to have your child start their day with a breakfast that's high in protein. This is going to help to properly fuel them for the start of their day and set them up for success throughout the day. Things such as sugary cereals, which many children are eating for breakfast, are not going to be supportive in learning. Choosing options like eggs or protein smoothie are going to be very beneficial for your child. Many of us are not getting enough protein in our everyday diet, so it's really something you want to be mindful of and make sure that it's a priority to be getting into your child's diet. You can get protein from animal sources such as meat, poultry, eggs, fish, dairy. There's also plant-based sources like beans, lentils, nuts, seeds, tofu. Um, Although the animal sources are a little bit of an easier way to make sure you're getting that adequate amount of protein, vegetarians can also hit those protein goals. They sometimes just need to be a little more strategic about it, just because it's harder to get that high protein in. The next area that I want to touch on is inflammation. When we hear the word inflammation, we often think of acute inflammation with an area in the body becoming red and swollen. However, it's the inflammation that's inside the body that we can't see, including in the brain, that we're talking about. And this chronic low-grade inflammation can disrupt the gut-brain axis and contribute to a range of cognitive, emotional, and behavioral issues in children. Systemic inflammation can also reduce the production of those very important neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin. As we mentioned before, the decrease in these neurotransmitters can contribute to symptoms such as decreased attention and focus, mood swings or irritability, even increased anxiety and depression. And chronic inflammation has also been linked to cognitive challenges, including problems with memory retention. This is particularly because it can have a negative impact on specific regions of the brain that are vital for learning and memory. So, having a body that is highly inflamed is going to negatively impact your child's ability to perform. And unfortunately, the Western pattern diet, and this is a diet consumed by many North Americans, is a highly inflammatory diet. It's low in nutrient-rich foods, not a lot of fruit and vegetables, high in processed and sugary foods, so it's largely made up of refined carbohydrates and unhealthy fats. The diet contributes to high levels of inflammation throughout the body, which, as we just learned, will consequently also have a negative impact on the body and the brain. And based on the long lineups at fast food chain restaurants that we see nowadays, these kids are consuming more and more of this inflammatory diet and less nutrient-rich foods. So while it's important to avoid many of the inflammatory foods that we just talked about, it's also important to incorporate anti-inflammatory foods. So that's going to help keep the inflammation in the body down. One in particular, consuming a healthy amount of omega-3 fatty acids is a really good way to help keep those inflammation levels at an appropriate level. And this nutrient is going to nourish the brain for optimal development as well. Some nutrients can be produced by our body, but these fatty acids are known as essential nutrients. So that means that we cannot produce them on our own. The only way we can get them is through diet or supplement. And there's an even higher need for these omega-3s in a child's formative years when their brains and bodies are rapidly growing and developing. So you're wanting to include a diet that's got plenty of fish, nuts, and seeds, that kind of thing. It's going to help. It's going to provide an adequate amount of these essential nutrients. Supplementing with a good quality omega can be helpful to those who find it challenging to get enough of those foods in their diet. It is important to source any supplement from a reputable company, though, just so you know you're getting a good quality. There's a lack of regulation within the supplement industry. So knowing where your products are coming from and knowing that they're a good quality is really important. And that's the same like with any supplement. So just supplements in general, make sure you're choosing a good quality and a reputable source. Okay, so far we've sort of focused on how brain function can be improved. We've discussed the benefits of omega-3s, along with other ways to reduce inflammation, how a healthy diet will support the gut and its microbiome, importance of incorporating an adequate amount of micronutrients by eating a variety of food. So there's also certain ingredients that are going to have a direct negative effect on the brain. So one of those that I want to discuss is sugar, particularly refined and added sugars, because they can have a significant impact on focus, learning, behavior, and mental health, especially in children and adolescents. And while sugar provides a quick source of energy, excessive or frequent intake can lead to a range of negative effects on the body and the brain. Large amounts of sugars can put the child's brain in overdrive and create these constant spikes and crashes in blood sugar. And that's going to affect mood and behavior. So when we consume foods high in refined sugar, such as candy, sugary drinks, pastries, the blood sugar levels are going to spike quickly, giving an initial burst of energy. However, this spike is often followed by a quick drop in the blood sugar, which can cause feelings of fatigue, irritability, and an inability to concentrate. So, this imbalance creates a roller coaster of emotions and energy levels. And this is going to make it really difficult for kids to focus during the day. This low blood sugar also leads to reduced brain function, particularly in areas associated with attention, executive function, and working memory. So, all areas that it's very important for a child, um, especially when they're trying to focus at school. So, these spikes in sugars throughout the day can create a lot of challenges for the kids. And while artificial sweeteners, which are often labeled as sugar-free or diet products, may be marketed as a healthier alternative to sugar, it's not usually a beneficial option. Emerging research suggests that these artificial sweeteners, such as aspartame and sucralose, have several negative effects on focus, learning, behavior, sleep, mental health. Anxiety in particular is one that a lot of studies have been done with artificial sweeteners. And even though these sweeteners don't contain the same calories or contribute to blood sugar spikes in the same way that sugar does, they can still disrupt the body's metabolic, neurological, and microbiome systems, which can lead to a wide range of potential issues. When you're choosing a sweetener, um, the best options to go with are things like honey and maple syrup. It's gonna, it's still a sweetener, but it's gonna have a little less of that spike in blood sugar. And there's also added benefits to things like honey and maple syrup. There's actually some nutrient value in there, which you would not get with regular sugar and artificial sweeteners. I also want to touch on food dyes, which are added to many everyday foods. Um, the purpose of these artificial food dyes is usually just to make them more appealing or to identify certain flavors. When, you think about when you see sports drinks, the yellow color is lemon lime and the grapes purple. So those are added dyes that are making it more appealing, making you recognize certain things. Um, these dyes can appear in a large range of foods, candies, baked goods, breakfast cereals, sports drinks, salad dressings, condiments, even medication can have added food dyes. And that's just to name a few. You would be surprised if you start to look at labels, um, look at the back of a jam. A lot of jams have red dyes added to them. Um, it's in a lot of products, and artificial food dye consumption has increased by around 500% over the past 50 years. And children are among the biggest consumers. Children are also especially vulnerable to these food dye exposures because their bodies are still developing. And research has shown that these dyes can have side effects. Some studies suggest that food dyes can either cause or worsen behavioral problems in children, such as hyperactivity and inattentiveness. These problems can be especially pronounced in children with ADHD, as some children are just more sensitive to the effects of artificial coloring than others are. And interestingly, some food dyes that are deemed safe in one country are completely banned for human consumption in another. There's many countries that have the same food as we do in North America, but their food is colored with ingredients that are natural, things like turmeric or beets, cabbage and paprika, instead of these artificial dyes. Um, but there is starting to be sort of some attention drawn. There's some brands on the market now that are offering, fun, colorful foods, but using natural ingredients instead. So you can get food dyes like food coloring that is made up of natural ingredients now. The next thing I want to talk about is water. Water is so important. It plays a key role in focus and brain performance. It's crucial for brain function and just overall well-being. It's so important in so many areas. But for the brain is made up of about 75% of water. So it relies on proper hydration for optimal function. Even mild dehydration can significantly affect cognitive performance. And this can contribute to poor concentration, difficulties in short-term memory, increasing mental fatigue. Hydration is also essential for maintaining proper neurotransmitter function, proper brain metabolism. Dehydration can disrupt the flow of nutrients and oxygen to the brain, which not only is going to contribute to reduced mental clarity, but also can contribute to slower reaction times. And this is important for both academics and sports. I know a lot of our boys at VC spend a lot of time on their sports as well as their academics. So obviously, a reduction in reaction times is going to affect those things. Dehydration can also lead to irritability, fatigue, headaches, difficulty regulating emotions, all things that are going to negatively impact a child's behavior and their capacity to learn. Another thing is that inadequate amounts of hydration has been shown to increase the levels of cortisol. And cortisol is the body's main stress hormone, and higher levels are going to negatively impact mood and contribute to irritability and emotional instability. So basically, a well-hydrated child is going to be better supported when it comes to focus, learning, behavior, mood. Some kids respond really well to tracking their water intake. It can be a good motivator for them to drink more water and less sugary beverages. Sometimes having a goal, encouraging your kids to refill their water bottle X amount of times during the school day. It just helps bring awareness and reminders of how important it is to stay hydrated. Another area which is so important as well that I want to touch on is sleep. Sleep is one of the most essential factors in supporting focus, learning, behavior, and all around mental health. It's really important for kids to get an adequate amount every night. So this is the recommended hours. Ages 3 to 5-year-olds should be getting 10 to 13 hours per night. 6 to 12-year-olds, 9 to 12 hours per night. 13 to 18-year-olds, so the teenagers, should still be getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night. Sleep is directly linked to the inability to concentrate, or directly linked to the ability to concentrate and maintain focus throughout the day. So not enough sleep is going to impair attention span, This will lead to difficulty staying on task, making good decisions, processing information. Sleep also plays an important role in brain restoration, especially the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for functions such as attention, executive functioning, and impulse control. So, when sleep is lacking, the prefrontal cortex becomes less effective. This is going to result in reduced focus and impaired judgment. And this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is one of the last parts of the brain to mature. And it often is not fully developed until someone reaches their early 20s. So it's really important for children and teens to support this development by getting enough sleep. And this part of the brain is typically develops even later in boys than in girls. So often you're not going to see it fully matured or developed until possibly mid 20s for boys. Another one of the really important roles of sleep is memory consolidation. So this is a process in which newly learned information is transferred from short-term to long-term memory. There's no doubt this is going to be extremely important for children's everyday learning. And there's research that shows children and adolescents who consistently get enough sleep perform better academically. So, staying up all night to study for a big test might sound like a good idea, but it's the sleep that's actually going to help the students retain the information. So, it's a good reminder to your kids that getting a good night's sleep before those tests is often as important as the amount of time you've put into studying. Just like dehydration, lack of sleep will slower reaction times. This will translate to slower responses in class, delays completing assignments, and again, difficulties performing optimally in sports. It's going to be more challenging for a sleep deprived child to adequately regulate their emotions, to cope with stress, frustration, unexpected events. Situations happen throughout the day where things don't go their way, and having enough sleep is going to help your child deal with those situations in a healthier way. And it really just makes their day go so much smoother. Um, Working with elementary age kids, I can see how hard it is for these boys to get through the day when they've had too late of a night. Everything, both academically and socially, is just so much more difficult for them when they haven't had the appropriate amount of sleep. So, just like with nutrition, your child is set up for better success if they are well rested. A good quality diet is also going to help support good quality sleep because we need certain nutrients for that optimal rest. We know this because if the body is deficient in certain areas, sleep's going to become more difficult. One example of that is that certain nutrients are going to help with the production of melatonin. And melatonin is a very important sleep hormone that helps your body's sleep-wake cycle. So if you don't have the proper nutrients to produce the melatonin, that's definitely going to have a direct effect on your sleep. Also, talking once again about the neurotransmitters, serotonin is a precursor to melatonin. So without enough of that in your body, again, you're going to have a harder time falling asleep and getting good quality sleep. So, some ways to support proper sleep hygiene is one is to just create a schedule and try to be as consistent as possible with it. I know that's easier said than done with kids and their busy schedules, but trying to go to sleep at around the same time every night, waking up around the same time every morning is going to be super helpful. Even if you can try to keep it a bit consistent on the weekends, it's just going to help promote better sleep. You want to create a positive sleep environment. You want it to be quiet, dark, cool, with no electronics, no bright lights. It's also important to limit screen time about an hour before bed. This is because there's the blue light that comes from smartphones, tablets, computers, TVs that can interfere with the production of the melatonin, which again is that hormone that's going to help regulate sleep. And having enough physical activity throughout the day is also going to be very important too. So every body is unique. There's going to be specific nutrient needs for each individual. However, there's many things that we can all be doing to support our children in a healthy way. So I know I covered a lot of different areas, but sort of to summarize those key points that we talked about: eating nutritious food, focusing on nourishing the good gut bacteria, focusing on proteins and anti-inflammatory foods. That's going to be super helpful. Reducing the intake of processed foods, of sugars, artificial dyes, staying hydrated, getting enough sleep. Like, those are all the things that everyone can be doing. If you focus on those areas, you're going to better equip your child to cope with mental stresses. A healthy and well-balanced diet can fuel the brain and the body to be more alert, to think more clearly, improve concentration, lengthen attention span, regulate emotions, and just really improve your mental health in general. And I really think that like, when you're trying to make changes, when you are tweaking a child's diet, how you present those changes to your child is important, and how you incorporate it into their everyday life is also a key piece in creating a successful outcome. There's many ways that work for families to make this transition to a healthier lifestyle, and it can be quite seamless. It doesn't have to be a stressful transition. Another thing that I think is really important when we're talking about making healthier choices, having our child make healthier choices, is finding a way to have them buy into the idea of making those healthy choices. That's really important. I always feel like education is essential at any age. So teaching them the importance of why they're making the healthy choices, why that's so important, is going to help them understand the reasoning, and instead of just feeling like they're being told to do something. I know that our boys here at Vancouver College work really hard in all they do, and whether that's their academics, their sports, their service, their extracurricular, I always remind my boys that so much of that hard work is not actually reaching its potential if they're not properly fueling their bodies. Much of that hard work and energy is really just going to be wasted. They put so much effort into learning, so much effort into training in a variety of areas, but without the foundation of good nutrition and sleep, much of those efforts are not going to reach the levels they potentially could. So when you tap into relating a healthy lifestyle into something they're passionate about or something they're working towards, you're going to have far better compliance. They're just going to buy into the idea um, of making those changes. It's also important for everyone, ourselves included, to really pay attention to our bodies and how certain things make us feel. Making the connection that we don't feel well after we eat something, or after pulling an all-nighter, or becoming dehydrated. This is our body's way of telling us what it needs and what it doesn't want. And so many people are just ignoring those symptoms. So not only can it lead to bigger problems down the road, but if we make that connection, we have our kids make those connections, it just brings an awareness of what their body is needing. So I also think that piece is really important. Making changes doesn't have to be overwhelming or intimidating. Drastic changes are usually not necessary. Simple dietary tweaks can make a big difference in a child's symptoms, especially if you make a couple small changes, that can have a huge impact. And even if you did have to eliminate a certain food for a period of time, there's just so many options. There's so many avenues to go down that are not as challenging as you think they could be. So if your child is struggling, I really encourage you to reach out to someone for guidance and support, because it can feel overwhelming if you're trying to do it alone. And the process can be greatly simplified when you have someone to help you navigate through that journey, so you don't feel like you're going in not knowing what you're doing. And I think those are sort of the main things that everyone can be doing. Like I said, each individual is going to have more specific needs, but in general, those are all ways to benefit your child's behavior and benefit your child's learning. We had a fair amount of questions come in, so I am going to go through as many as I can in the time that we have left. We have a bit of time left, so I think I should get through most of them. A lot of them some of the questions I've touched on through the presentation, but I can get more specific with them here. So one of the questions that was asked is there a link between teenage acne and diet? There's definitely a connection between what teenagers are eating and acne. Yes. There's a lot of hormonal changes that happen, which are obviously going to contribute to that, but food can certainly play a key role. Sugary foods and drinks, that's a big one. They're going to increase breakouts. Dairy is another big culprit. We often see links between dairy and acne. It can be just quite an inflammatory food. And it also has certain hormones and proteins that can affect things like the skin's oil production and inflammation. That's another thing, is major breakouts can be a sign that there's a lot of inflammation in the body. Another thing that can be helpful would be drinking lots of water and staying really hydrated. This can help reduce breakouts because it will help with balancing hormones, and it's also going to flush out any toxins that may be a contributing factor to the breakouts. Another question was, how can I get my young child to eat more vegetables when they are a picky eater? Vegetables can be challenging for many young kids, and sometimes you need to be creative with it. I think the biggest thing is to just continue to reintroduce the foods, continue to offer the foods, putting a small portion on their plate, even when you're pretty sure they're not going to eat it. You never know, sometimes they'll surprise you, but just continue to keep offering the food. Modeling, having them see you eat the food is also really helpful. Sometimes giving them a choice between more than one. Would you rather have the broccoli or the carrots? And sometimes they feel if they have a choice, they're going to be more likely to eat it. Having them involved in the preparation can sometimes encourage them to try it as well. You can also add certain vegetables into things such as smoothies or muffins, pasta sauce. Those are all great ways to get some added nutrients into picky eaters. Things like spinach and seeds are easy to put into a smoothie without anyone really even realizing it. Shredded zucchini and carrots, those are great things to put into muffins. So many vegetables can be pureed and put into a pasta sauce. You can, gradually puree it less and make it chunkier to try to get your child more used to having the actual vegetables. Like I said, just trying to get creative. I remember one of my boys did not want anything to do with salad, would never eat a salad, but liked bacon. So we put bacon bits on the salad, and instantly he was sold on salad. Gradually less and less bacon went on the salad, and he quickly had no problem eating salad. But just being creative and being patient and just continuing to offer it to the kids. That's what would be my suggestion for the picky eaters. Do you have suggestions for school lunches, both packed and cafeteria food? I mean, a home packed lunch is usually going to be the healthier option. You just have more control of what's going in it. I would say make sure to, again, have an adequate amount of protein in there, because the protein's really important to sustain your child throughout the day. Having fruits and vegetables in there. Personally, I really like making big batches of mini muffins and putting them in the freezer, because you can just grab a handful of them, put them in lunches. They're small, so they thaw really quickly. So that's, any kind of preparation that you can do is going to be helpful in all areas when you're looking to have a healthier lifestyle. And then I know a lot use the cafeteria as well. I'm not super familiar with what's offered there. But again, encouraging your child to make choices where they're going to have a good amount of protein, have some fruit and vegetables. If your child's eating there regularly, I would just say talk to them about what's being offered to them, and talk to them about what the choices they're making. is it, or suggest other choices that might be beneficial. For example, if your child's choosing to have French fries and store-bought muffins, Jello, and a sugary drink, they're not going to be in a good space to learn for the afternoon. So having those conversations again about what the options are and what might be beneficial choices for them. Another question. I think we have time for a few more. My child usually only eats the same few foods every day. Is this a problem? So eating the same food every day can be okay short term, especially if there's some balance to what they are eating. But you're going to want to avoid it long term if possible, because without variety, you're going to have some gaps in certain nutrients and in the microbiome. And it also can increase the likelihood of developing an intolerance to a certain food. So when your body is never getting a break from a specific food, it can develop a sensitivity to it. So it's always best when possible to rotate your foods. But for short periods of time, if they're going through a phase of specific foods, it's not a huge problem if it's short term. Another question that we have here is, my son seems to get sick a lot. Can this be related to his diet? Absolutely. About 70% of the body's immune system is actually in the gut. So that microbiome that we talked about plays a huge role in keeping our immune function working well. Certain vitamins and minerals will also help to keep the immune system strong. When we talk about eating the rainbow, it's a great way to incorporate them. Hydration is also really important, as it's going to help flush any toxins out of the system. The sugary and processed foods are going to negatively affect our immune system. I mean, of course, we cannot avoid being exposed to viruses and fighting infection. It's actually part of how our immune system stays strong. So these exposures help train and maintain the immune system and keeping it sort of primed and ready to respond to infection. But having a healthier lifestyle that's going to support your immune system is going to lessen your symptoms when you do get sick. And it's just going to help your body recover quicker. A few more questions that we got in here. We did touch on some of these, but how does diet affect emotional states like depression? So kind of a lot of what we talked about with the neurotransmitters, how what we're eating and how the gut is related to the production of the neurotransmitters, because depression has been linked to problems with imbalances in certain neurotransmitters. So again, making sure that you've got that good bacteria, that you're able to produce the appropriate amount of neurotransmitters is going to be beneficial. Is there specific food to give or avoid for kids with ADHD? Many of the points that we discussed are going to benefit a child with ADHD. Working on that gut microbiome, keeping inflammation down, reducing those processed inflammatory foods that we talked about, higher amount of the omegas, like reducing food dyes, trying to keep those completely out of the diet, because as we said, kids with ADHD seem to be more sensitive to those food dyes. Sometimes eliminating certain foods, again, it's different for everyone. But often certain foods can trigger behavior. So when you take those out of the diet, you can often see improvements, and you're also going to allow that gut to heal. So there's a lot of things that can be done. Following a lot of the basics is great, but also possibly learning of what specifically is your child's trigger and how you can support them specifically. Let's see what other questions. Despite having a variety of healthier options at his fingertips, our teen continues to rely on junk food. It can definitely be challenging to encourage teens to make healthy decisions. Junk food's addictive, and teens are especially drawn to them. I think, again, education is a big piece, relating the importance of nutrition to something that they're working towards, something they're passionate about. Even if that's something like how we talked about acne, your skin is bothering you. If we try cleaning up our diet, that will likely make a difference. So sort of tapping into what is important to them. And if you're making sure to have healthy options at home, that's going to be super helpful. I know you can't control a lot of what your teen consumes, especially outside the house, but if you're making sure the meals inside are nutrition, that's really important. And many people are trying to sort of aim for the 80-20 rule, where that means you're doing all the right things 80% of the time when it comes to your diet and nutrition. And so maybe, I mean, sometimes it takes a while to work your way to that 80, but it's a goal to get to. And I also think, again, making the connection, trying to dig in and see, ask your child, how do you feel when you eat all that junk food? Chances are they're probably not feeling great. Whether or not your teen will admit that to you, I don't know. That's a different story. Um, and I think we'll do one more question. The last one here. My son refuses to eat breakfast or pack a lunch. I am concerned that most days he does not eat until the afternoon. When he does eat, he is sneaking candies or fried foods away from home. Any suggestions on how to alter behavior, as I know this cannot be good for his development or learning? Um, so again, education is what I would recommend. Finding the reason, you know, finding a reason that resonates with your kid, why they might be keen to make changes. Um, I would also ask your son, why do you not eat breakfast? Are you just not hungry? Do you not feel well in the mornings? Do you not have time? Why do you not eat lunch? So try to maybe get to the bottom, see if there's an actual reason, um, and see if there's something else going on. Also trying to involve him in some of the choices, finding maybe similar alternatives that are a little bit healthier choice. Like I love the idea of healthy swaps and I do them when I can. But sometimes, especially with kids in the teen years, you're not necessarily going to be able to get to a healthy swap. You might have to go to a healthier swap and work your way and sort of baby steps just to because it can be tricky with teens. They just sort of gravitate towards that food. But again, offering the healthier options at home, um, I think is a really important piece, and tapping into what's important to them and try to relate to them how that connects to the food they're eating, I think is important, especially for the older ones. And I think that's all the questions. And I think, yeah, we're on time.
Well, thanks everyone. It's Anna, and I just want to say, Christy, that was a great presentation. I thank you very much for your time and your commitment to putting together this slideshow for us. I hope we all take this information and do our best to apply it. I think I'm going to show it to my son. He probably got some at school, but I think it's just a way to reinforce what we're trying to do for all our kids. So thank you very much. Much appreciated.
I did forget to mention, Anna, that if anyone had any additional questions, my email is on here. It's donnelly4family@gmail.com. That, if you have questions about the presentation or you didn't get your questions in on time, you're welcome to reach out to me directly.
Perfect. And it is recorded, so that information will be made available. The other thing is, Michelle has asked me to forward to you the link for our survey. Really appreciate if we could get some feedback from everyone about this.
Just
So,
pasted it, Anna. It's on everyone. Yeah,
Oh.
folks would collect. It's important for us to hear what you guys think. So yeah,
Yes.
it's in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Oh, now I've lost my screen. Forgive me. Okay, thank you. Coming up in about 3 weeks, before we have our break in February, there's hopefully another parent talk. It's scheduled, but it's a tentative date for February 5th. That may change. So that information will be made available through emails, through Parent Talk or the BC newsletter. I think that's pretty much all we have to say. Is there anything else, Michelle?
No, I think we're good. Thanks everybody. And Christy, thank you again. I don't know about you folks, we found it very informative. And I know that spurs a lot of question, but again, we're asked to keep this to an hour long, so that's why we just, kind of keep it that way. So on that note, we would like to thank everybody for attending, and thank you, Christy, again, and cheers. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.